Hello, it's Dawn Michelle and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the stuff that I got up to all throughout August of 2024. We'll take a quick peek at my planner. We'll talk about the tarot decks that I worked with, the practices I engaged in, and then we'll take a look at my tarot journals. As always, there'll be timestamps below if you want to skip around to any piece or part of this video. So kind of just to recap like the month. I tend to like to just jump into my planner because I do kind of keep a record of things that I have going on in here. This is a Hobonichi Weeks and it's in a Moturn cover. So just jumping in real quick, I'm just gonna kind of go over a few things that were maybe memorable for the month. Again, timestamps below if none of this interests you. Most of this is just kind of like my daily to-do list, appointments I have, things going on, but I do some memory keeping in here as well through, like, basically I make stickers. So I have a a little sticker from Detroit Become Human because Kevin and I started playing that game at the beginning of August. So I've got a little picture of a new Connor here and a little logo for that game. I also started playing a game with my friend Allie over at Tarot, and we're playing Baldur's Gate 3. We're playing that offline, but occasionally I make fun videos out of it, and this is my character from that game. Her name's Dahlia. She's a cute little goth pixie warlock, and I absolutely adore playing her. So it's kind of a memorable thing. Okay, going into August, there was a lot that happened in August, like in my personal life. I finished reading Bookshops and Bone Dust, which is amazing. I absolutely love that book. Kevin and I have started this thing where we are watching old movies every Friday night. So we started with Encino Man on the first Friday of August. Then my kids moved out. So my youngest and their partner that were living with us and have been for the last like 3 years, I think now, they moved out and they got their own place together, which this is a picture of Ash opening the door for the first time, which is super exciting. So there was a lot going on with getting the kids settled in their new place, getting them moved, all that kind of stuff. So that took up quite a bit of my time. I did end up making a gaming journal. So I will actually show that here in this video. I do have a video on my other channel of it as well, so I'll leave a link to that below if you want to see it in detail, but I'll do a quick flip through while we're here. Just some fun things that I had going on. You know, I recorded WTF with my friends, did some shopping with the kids. This was just some screenshots from a playthrough that I was doing in BG3, some of the memorable moments from that. This is just a fun little thing that I found online. This is Gale and Astarion as Crowley and Aziraphale. Just funny. It's totally fitting for them. Some memorable moments from game stuff. This week, Kevin and I watched Reality Bites. That was a good one. Okay, so moving into the last week in August, kind of a big week. In addition to moving out, my youngest turned 21. So we did the whole 21 thing. We went out, took them out for dinner. I turned one of my game runs into a movie, which was just fun. It was just good editing fun. I actually posted it on Friday, but like, you know, stickers, and sometimes you just gotta stick things in your planner the way that they can fit in there. And then the movie that Kevin and I watched was Singles. So that was really fun. This is a picture of Ash taking a drink. Ash is not a drinker, so it was quite hilarious. And just a quick moving into September, I'll just show you real quickly what I have set up for my decor because I haven't had time to actually do the sort of plan with me or decorate with me on camera. I've just been kind of doing them as I have time. So I bought these stickers and this washi. So this little kind of postage note washi, the branches washi, and the beautiful, I think they're a Poisonous Flower sticker from the Creeping Moon shop on Etsy. It's also the same creator as the Anima Mundi. I absolutely adore everything that they create. All of my journals are from Creeping Moon, and so I'm consistently buying new things from them. So I just did this kind of like dark postage note, dark flower thing motif for September. It's definitely fitting with the vibe. I have some Stampin' here and some washi. And I just went ahead and filled out through the end of September. So that is what I had going on in August, just some fun things, kind of big life moments with the kids. So let's go ahead and jump into the decks that I worked with throughout the month. So some of these decks are going to be repeats of decks that I worked with in the last few months. This is the Tarot of Persephone's Garden. I do have the new version of this deck now, so I might be swapping over to that one. Here's the backs. The artwork is absolutely stunning. I need to do a little side-by-side comparison for myself just to see. I really think that I'm going to end up using the new version over this one. They're both beautiful, but just kind of the idea and the energy that I'm picking up from the other deck, I feel like sits more in alignment with this particular practice for me. I do absolutely adore this deck. This creator, I think, also has, it's either coming soon or maybe it's just out one for Artemis, which is really cool. Artemis is not a goddess that I really work with, so I probably won't pick it up myself, but it's absolutely stunning. This creator does a fantastic job with curated art decks. I am thoroughly impressed. The quality is phenomenal. The selection of the art to the tarot is amazing, and I really enjoy what they have done with their decks so far. I'll just show you right here. Here's the new version, and there are a few card art differences, but also it's the backs. The backs are different. So you can see here, they have the darker background, and I think that's going to work better for me. So I'm going to probably switch over to that. So in addition to my Persephone deck, I have been working with the Persephone and Hades. Now my Hades deck is the Darkness of Light Tarot. Again, I've mentioned this many times over the last few months. This deck I had, and I rehomed it because I didn't really like the cardstock that it was on originally. I think I had the second edition, first or second edition, and then I was able to pick up a copy of the, I believe this is the fourth edition. Yes, fourth edition, which is on gorgeous linen. And for me, this is my Hades deck. So I use this whenever I'm working with Hades energy, whenever I'm doing my Hades and Persephone readings, and it works beautifully. I love the artwork. It's very RWS, but it definitely works for me. It's got this beautiful moody vibe to it. It just so fits with the energy of Hades for me and how I work with that deity's particular energy. I use these two decks together. I do my dice casting, so I have my Hades set of dice is here on the table, and then I also have, I keep in a jar, I keep both of them in individual jars. This is my Persephone dice. I have shown those many times. I've been using these two decks together for daily draws. Now sometimes I incorporate dice, sometimes I don't. It just depends on what I've got going on. I did a video with my members talking about daily draw and how I work with these two, specifically how I work with them as Hades and Persephone energy and what I do with that. So if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. I do talk about sort of the idea of daily draw in a general sense as well in that video, and how my sort of daily draw practice has changed over the years and kind of the things that I do now versus things I used to do, and all of that kind of good stuff. These two, I pretty much pull a card every single day from each deck, at least one from each, to get a message from Hades and Persephone, and I leave that energy up with me throughout the day, either in the form of the cards sitting out somewhere on my desk, or if my desk is quite full and chaotic like it is today, I will write it in a random journal. Or also my favorite, like I posted on Instagram, I often will write it down on a post-it note and just stick that somewhere I will see it, like my computer monitor. I absolutely love the two of these together. To me, these so succinctly embody Persephone and Hades energy, and that's pretty much all I use these decks for. I couldn't even really imagine at this point using them for any other work. They just fit so perfectly into that energy for me. So I've been using these two as my daily draws, getting my message from Hades and Persephone. Sometimes I add more cards, sometimes I add dice. It just kind of depends on how much time I have and how I'm feeling about things. And I have absolutely been loving it. It's been a beautiful practice. So I have also been using some decks for some integrated work that I've been doing over the month as well. This is my Tarot of Vampyres, and I have been using this deck. Here's the beautiful backs. I have edged mine in red. I do believe this deck is out of print now, or is going out of print. I'm not sure which. I actually bought a backup copy, which is hilarious because this is a deck that I have really struggled with connecting with. I have used it a lot for working with Lilith energy. It works beautifully with that. I have an oracle deck that I pair with it. I think I've talked about that in some other videos, but I also ended up pulling this deck out for some video game related stuff that I was doing. So I do some sort of integrative work with video games. Not only is it for fun, but I also do, actually also do like personal growth work through playing video games. It's a whole thing. It's just kind of a thing that I've been doing for many years. I didn't really realize that it was like an actual sort of practice. And as I become more aware of working with cards and journaling and things of that nature, I've realized that this is a thing that I've done for many, many years. I just now have a better understanding for it and a deeper awareness of it. So as I was finishing up one of my gameplays, I pulled out this deck and I did some work with it, and it was really great. This deck really embodies kind of the energy of the character that I created. Her name is actually Persephone. She doesn't really fit in alignment so well with like the deity Persephone, but it's just like I named her Persephone a long time ago before I actually started my Persephone work. And this energy of this deck really fits her vibe quite well. It's also got vampires, so you know the other character, Starion, is a vampire, and so I was using this for work with her, also in gameplay, also working, you know, through thoughts and feelings and reflections I had as I played through this game and as I played through this story. I really enjoyed my work with this deck in that sense. So it was really cool to be able to pull it into game. I often have tarot decks associated with my characters. In fact, I think all of my BG3 characters all have a tarot deck that I associate with them. This one ended up being Persephone's deck. It is also the deck that I use for my work with Lilith, and it works beautifully for that. So I love that it was able to kind of serve in both of those functions for me this month. I didn't do a ton of work with Lilith because I have been focusing more on Persephone and Hades, but I definitely worked with this in alignment with my character. So also, in addition to using cards with my games, I started pulling out a tarot deck with this book that I'm reading. So a friend recommended to me this book, Haunting Adeline, I think is the title of it. Like, massive trigger warnings with that book. I didn't even pull it out to show. I have shown it on my Instagram, but like massive trigger warnings with that book. But I was playing with the idea of, you know, pulling cards while I was reading, and I ended up pulling the Witch's Tarot. It's edged in this beautiful black mat. So this deck kind of has this sort of moody, dark sort of energy to it that kind of felt like it actually sat in alignment with that book. That book is about a stalker, and there are a lot of dubious things in it. There are a lot of morally ambiguous characters in that. And it does kind of strip things away to this very naked and raw place. And I think that's what made me think of this deck. I think the thing about this deck, and one of the reasons that I thought about it when I was looking at the decks and picking one to use in alignment with this story, is that these do feel like they're kind of peeking into somebody else's life, into somebody else's world. They are photographs. These are real people. And a lot of times it's showing them very vulnerable and in these kind of raw states, and it feels like maybe this is kind of like looking through the window at someone else. And so it kind of felt like it fit in alignment with that energy. It definitely has a dark, moody sort of vibe to it, and it's been really interesting. I just kind of had a little bit of a play with it, just pulling, you know, a couple of cards, usually like 3, just to get a little message when I would sit down to read. And then I'd kind of look back at the cards and go, that was interesting. Like, how might I correlate the cards that I drew with the passages I just read? And it was an interesting exercise in just looking at where the essence of the tarot, the essence of the Fool's Journey comes through in modern media. Like, I think I said it in a member video not too long ago, where I was talking about how you can find the fool's journey in characters, in stories, in books, in movies, in video games. It's interesting when you look at it and you pair a deck with a book, because you will see where those come through. And maybe it may not have been necessarily in that scene, but maybe in a previous scene, you remember, oh, this is kind of a chariot moment, or this was a Knight of Swords moment for that character. And it's just really interesting, and it just gives me something else to think about and something else to ponder on. I really enjoyed working with this deck. I have not finished the book yet. Like, I'm only about halfway through. So I will probably continue to work with this as I finish up reading this book. It was a drastic shift from Bookshops and Bone Dust book. Completely different vibe, completely different thing. I do feel like it kind of has represented this shift into the darker time of the year, which I'm really actually on board for. Like, I'm ready for the dark season, the dark half of the year. But it's interesting how kind of the fiction and the decks that I chose, and I think you'll see it reflected a little bit in my journal too, whereas kind of there was a shift to this little bit darker, moodier sort of energy. So real quick before we move on to talk about the decks that I worked with in the fellowship practice, I'm gonna talk about a couple of decks that are just kind of like always on my desk, always at hand, and that I kind of dip in and out of for just any sort of general work that I might be doing. This is the Mythos Tarot, and I've mentioned this one a couple of different times now, I think. This says it is a Persephone deck, but to me it's not. It's just a Greek pantheon deck. I don't look at it as being super in alignment with Persephone's energy. Here's the backs. It's shiny gold gilding, but I mean, at least it's high quality. I love this deck. This deck is kind of like one of my favorite go-tos now, just for sort of everyday kind of readings. Just, I don't know, it's the fantasy in the mundane, or it allows me to take mundane things and to look at them through a fantasy lens. And it's just a lot of fun to work with in that way. I've used it for just about every kind of reading. It's one of those that's kind of just become an all-purpose sort of reader for me. It doesn't really sit in any one particular space in my practice. I don't use it for any one particular thing. It just kind of is a gorgeous, general, all-around reader. I love the art. I love the interpretation of the tarot in it. It is one of those decks that just makes me happy when I get to look through it. And I really enjoy it. It's just one that's a great one to pull out just if I need to do a little quick reading, or I'm just needing a little bit of clarity around a thought or an idea or something like that. Then this is the deck that I've been pulling out, and it's been working beautifully for that, for just kind of the everyday sort of reading. It's great. It's like the fantasy world in the everyday, and I really enjoy that. And then, as I'm sure most of you know by now, I use the tabletop quite frequently. This is like my comfy, cozy deck. I absolutely love this deck. It's one of my favorites. Here's the beautiful backs. So I always say this is Legends and Latte in a deck. This is my comfort deck. So I go to this one anytime I just need a little bit of like love and support, a little bit of comfort. If I'm feeling a little bit stressed out, I will take a flip through this deck or give it a shuffle and pull a couple cards. I've mentioned many times, there's so many D&D pop culture references in this deck that just immediately make me smile the minute they hit the tables. So I really love working with this one. It's just, look at that Emperor. Just every card makes me happy. And I think that's the thing with a deck like this. Ten of Cups is everything. It's my favorite Ten of Cups ever. Anyway, and if you know the world that comes from, that's why. So this one for me is just like, it just makes me smile. This is just a feel-good deck. That is what this deck is for me. It is my favorite comfort thing. So it, along with the Mythos Tarot, which has just become my sort of everyday reader, both sit up on my desk for me to grab anytime that I need to tap into either one of these energies. Okay, so moving along to the decks that I worked with in the fellowship, that is the guided tarot practice that I'm currently doing in my membership this year. We are doing a D&D inspired fantasy adventure, and for this month in August we were stepping through the portal. So we were in this fire mountain place and we dealt with a dragon and all of that, and then we stepped into a portal, kind of taking a breather, taking a moment to center, ourselves and to kind of get back in touch with what we're doing here. And then kind of shortcutting in the world of the story, shortcutting to the next place that we needed to go to. So it was kind of this transition liminal space area that we were in for the month. And for that, I used the Gateway of Light activation, the Soul Seeds Oracle. This is my Tarot of the Cat People, and the Little Cryptid Oracle. So I'll talk about how I used each one of those. So the Gateway of Light activation Oracle, like I've talked about this deck many times, this is my portal deck. I have other decks that kind of sit in the space of portal energy, but this is the one that I tend to go to. I have edged mine as well. It just has a great energy. I really love the sort of portals and the places and the ideas and things represented through the titles. And then each card has 3 keywords, and that's definitely something that I tend to tap into when I'm working with this deck. For the fellowship, we had very specific portals that we were pulling. So we had the portal that we stepped into and then the portal that we came out of. So I really only used 2 cards. And so that was pretty much all I used. But I did, dip into this every once in a while just because my fellowship decks sit out. So even though I do use them primarily for that practice, I do also dip in and out of them, because they're at hand. So occasionally when I feel like I need a little bit of transition energy, I get into the Gateway of Light activation. I'll pull a portal, and then I'll usually pull 3 cards, 3 tarot cards to help me, further flesh out and connect with those keywords on the bottom. And the tarot deck that I most often use with this, because I think it works beautifully, is the Tarot of the Cat People. I love this deck. It is one of my favorites. It's like an oldie but a goodie. Actually, it's fairly new to me in the last few years, but like the deck's been around for a while. Here's the beautiful backs. This deck it's phenomenal. I don't know what it is about this deck. I definitely feel like it's like an alien deck. It's like stepping into a whole nother world with these cat people. It feels very cosmic, very into the other, and I really enjoy my work with it. It's quite blunt too. So it has a tendency to just like really kind of just spit out what it is that I need, and like it's kind of no nonsense in that way. These cat people are very blunt and that's been my experience with them, and I really appreciate that because it's like, here's your message, like quit messing around. This is what you need to know. No, you don't need to pull more cards. No, you don't need to keep adding. This is the message that you need. So this is the one that you're going to sit with. And I really appreciate that kind of blunt nature of it. I don't really have to second guess what's going on and the message that I'm getting. Occasionally there's those decks that, like, I don't know, man, they just speak on a level that you understand. It's like they're speaking my language, and apparently I get the language of the cat people. It just makes sense to me. And I absolutely love it. It's just an amazing reader. It's one of my favorites. I use it a lot when I am looking to connect with that idea of something other than current reality, I guess. Like, it offers me a different perspective because I do feel like it's sort of coming from a place of this alien sort of energy where it's not of our world. So you get that sort of big picture perspective from it because it feels very macrocosm, not microcosm to me. So I feel like I'm stepping into a world that is different than our own, but it allows me to kind of see that bigger picture energy of my little world, right? Of the mundane. But it's showing me through this larger lens of the Tarot of the Cat People. And it's just really cool. I really love it. It works really well with the Gateway of Light activation as well. It's a fun one to work with, and it's very blunt, so I appreciate that about it. I was using this as my main reader for the month, and then I was using the Soul Seeds Oracle for my loot cards, as well as occasional cards, additional cards in a pull. I'm not a fan of the gilding on this deck. It keeps coming off on my hand. It does catch, and I think like I can feel it on the edges, so I think it's gonna need to go. I might micro trim this one. The backs are beautiful, but I actually really love this deck. I do have a couple of the other Soul Trees Oracles, but this one, like, I keep feeling the gilding catch on my fingers, and I really, really hate that. It's such a tactile turnoff. Is that a thing? It really is. It's a tactile turnoff. It makes me not want to work with the deck, but I love the imagery so much that I go ahead and like I deal with it. type of a thing. But I'm probably just gonna micro trim it and take the silver gilding off, and then I'll probably just edge it in like a nice deep purple or something like that. But at any rate, I really love the art and I love the keywords. So the Soul Trees oracles, a lot of them, like, they're trees, and that's a great energy. And I do have one of the other ones. I think I have the Ascension one, and I use it quite often with a lot of my sort of fantasy cosmic energy decks. It works really beautifully for that. But this one has a little bit more of a variety in what's depicted on the cards, and I really enjoy that. It feels like it's a bit more open, a bit more expansive, and I feel like it will fit in more areas in my practice and work with more decks. I'm just gonna do a quick little playing with pairs here with the Tarot of Cat People, just so you can kind of see it, because I do think they work pretty well together. Even though these do have, the Cat People does have the border on it, I still think it works well. The energy really is cohesive, because this to me, in a sense, feels like it's taking that cosmic big picture energy of the Cat People and the message that I'm getting from that macrocosmic lens. And even though these feel like they tap into that, they feel like they tap into it in a very mundane way. So it's like taking that message and bringing it down into self is kind of how I see it. So it works really well together in that sense. We have like the divine between the Empress and the Hermit. So this, to me, this artwork and this imagery and this messaging feels like taking that huge cosmic archetypal energy and bringing it down into experiencing it as divine within self. And I really enjoy that. They work really well together. I did do a couple of readings with just these two, where I pulled the Soul Seeds Oracle as my focal point, and then I did a tarot reading with the Tarot of the Cat People to kind of flesh that out, to give me a little bit more context about, like, okay, lessons. So what is the lessons? The lessons are the Two of Cups and the Star. And, you know, what can I learn from that, and how can I use that in this moment? We have Together here with the Six of Pentacles and the Eight of Swords. I think they work really well together. I really enjoyed them. It was just a wonderful experience using them in the fellowship, but also to use them just for kind of connecting when I felt like there was something that I was grappling with that was a bigger concept, that larger life energy, in particular with work-related stuff, which was really interesting. I pulled these two out together to kind of help me like take that big picture, that big concept, that huge energy, and like, how do I distill it down into self? How do I take that within and make some sense of it? And these worked really well for that. I really enjoyed them together. I think they're beautiful. I think the energies are really in alignment. So in addition to those decks that I used for my fellowship readings, I also used the little cryptic oracle. This, I believe, is a prototype, and I got this from Lisa. So I think this is the prototype of this particular deck, but I've really been enjoying it. I used this, here's the backs. I used this specifically when there was a call to pull a card from the companion or the pet. So in the practice, there was a point where we had a companion join us, and if you choose to let them venture with you, we pull cards from them. We also, some of us picked up a Displacer Beast kitten as a pet from the Weaver's Fair that we did. And whenever those come into play in the practice, we tend to pull extra cards for them for different things. Like oftentimes the companion is something that supports you, and oftentimes the Displacer Beast kitten or the pet is something that is kind of like trying to trip you up, drawing you away. It's kind of a challenge in a lot of ways. And so we kind of get that counterbalance between the two. I really enjoyed using this. This was so much fun. I used it for both my pet and my companion. And it was just interesting to see, you know, what would come up in each of those positions. We have the title of whatever the character is, or whatever the cryptid that we're seeing, and then the keyword at the bottom. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this one. I did play with this one on occasion, just, you know, and occasionally pulling a little cryptid just to see what I would get for the day, just because it was a fun little thing to do. And I really enjoyed it. It's so much fun. These little characters are so cute. And I just had a blast using them as my companion and my pet. It really did add a little bit of whimsy to the reading because we were in this very like liminal space, and the decks that I chose were sort of very cosmic-y and kind of, again, big picture sort of energy. And then just to kind of pull in the fun and the play with the little cryptid was really great. I really enjoyed that. And these cards are just fantastic. Like, I'll just flip through the rest of them because they're super cute. Like Bigfoot and Mystery, Sandown Sam, Innocence. Yeah. Chupacabra, Fulfillment. Shuck, Manifestation. It's just, they're so cute. They're so cute. I really enjoyed working with them. So that was the decks that I worked with in the fellowship, and then the dice that I used just real quickly. I always have my black and white ones in here. These go with my guardian whenever I am accessing Ani as a guardian. And then primarily I ended up using this dice set, which is like this blue and pink kind of cosmic-y swirly with the gold numbers. It worked really well. I did also have this purple set in here that I occasionally rolled with, but for the most part, like I really just enjoyed the blue pink ones. They felt like they really fit in alignment with the decks that I was choosing. And then I always have my white ones in here, which are the ones that I use when I'm specifically working with my companion. But for the most part, I just did my main dice this time, and it was great. So jumping into my journals, I have 3 journals that I'm gonna quickly share with you today. I'll start with my fellowship journal just because that one is, you know, it's pretty much the same every time, but I just kind of want to continue to show it because like I have the whole adventure in here so far. And that's just fun, right? It's just fun. Okay, so that's September. So as I mentioned, in August, we went through the Starlight Portal. So I have in here just kind of the narrative that is in the PDF that's available. I just copy it down. I write it in first person. It's in third person in the PDF, but I just transfer it to first person when I put it in here so that it's, you know, reading as if it's coming from me. Like this is my adventure diary through this experience. I have the initiative questions. This time I had like the portals that we had in here. I just do some stickering and some stamping. I have the cards that I draw, little shape stamps. They're just a basic little set of stamps in shapes. I think they're actually meant for like bullet journaling, but for the most part they work really well and they match the dice shape. So I just put in there when I, you know, roll the dice and what number I got and how it corresponds to the card. So this is the encounter, and then every week we end with our loot. So those are, you know, what we kind of gained through this experience, and that's something that we're going to be working with at the end of the adventure as well when we kind of collect all of our loot. So the second week was taking shape, and we were asking the question of what can I create in this space. So we have our initiative, the story, the encounter, the cards I pulled in this encounter, some of my reflections, my loot. Moving into the third week, we had Shaping Self, and this was what do I need that I'm not currently seeing? And again, the dice, the cards that I pulled, the narrative of the story, and you know how it relates to what we were doing within this space, the encounter and the loot. And yeah, then coming through to our final portal where we were stepping back out into the world, like coming through, looking at where we've changed, what we've grown in this space, what realizations we came to, and that was fun. And then we move into September's, which is the Forest Goblin, and this one's a fun one. I'm really looking forward to jumping into that one. So that was my fellowship journal. This and sort of just my general practice journal are both from the Creeping Moon shop. So we'll go ahead and take a look at this one really quickly. I did something a little bit different in August with this journal. So I had been, you know, kind of recording readings in here. I have random things like art that I make. This is a reading Lisa and I did together, things of that nature, some of my favorites. So this journal has really just evolved to be whatever I need it to be in the moment. I don't really sort of dictate what it is to myself. I just put in here whatever I feel like putting in here, if that makes sense. And in August, I did not feel like journaling the actual readings and things that I was doing. I noted those in other places. Some of them are in my phone. Some of them are just, you know, photo records type of a thing. And so what I wanted to do this month in August is more just record the decks and what I use them for versus actually recording the individual work with the deck. And it was just kind of an idea that I wanted to play with. I did end up pulling a card from the floral, this one right here. I can grab it because it's right here, the Flower Oracle, this one, and I have shown that one before, but I only pulled a single card from it. So I just pulled that as kind of like a thing to maybe keep in mind for the month. And it had the 3 keywords of hope, daring, and consolation. So I was just kind of using this as a general sort of energy for the month. This is actually garbage. Like it's recycling. I'm recycling. This came in a box and like stuff was wrapped around it. So I just unfolded it and I thought it was neat that it was kind of just like layered. I put a stamp on it and I glued this side down and then left this side open. So I have the list of the decks that I worked with throughout the month. I have not mentioned in this video that I did also do some work with the Diablo Tarot, the Notoria, and the Dante's Inferno. I have talked about those decks at length, and so I didn't include them in here. I do have videos here and there on my channel talking about how I work with them, but those are decks that I kind of get into like all the time. So I did note in here that I did work with them again, but again, I don't really have any reference to them and I'm not showing them in this video. I just wanted to make a note to myself that I was using them. So I just have that in there as a list of the decks that I used. So listing out more of kind of the general practice and the decks I used for that practice. So this is my Hades and Persephone, which I did talk about. And I just have a picture in here that I know that I'm using the Darkness of Light and the Tarot Persephone's Garden. And I just kind of made a note of like what I was doing. The daily card pull, 1 from each, using dice occasionally to flesh that out, sometimes pulling in more cards depending on how I felt. So again, just kind of keeping a record of more of the practices and the decks rather than individual moments. And I just wanted to kind of play with that idea. Again, here is that I was reading this book, using this deck, kind of have some reflections on, you know, how that's going so far. Because again, haven't finished it, but I'm still reading that and working with that deck. And then I have my Tarot of Vampyres, which I was using, like I said, in alignment with this particular run of this game and those characters. And then I kind of noted what I ended up using. I did forget to mention that I was using my Bloody Kisses dice for this. I do have a whole dice collection video if you want to see all of my dice. I mean, I'm sure I've added more since then, but that's the majority of them, and these dice are in there. And I was using that because I was doing some dice divination over the top of it, and occasionally using dice in the game if I was like unsure about things. It's a great way to like help you with decision paralysis. And then that's it. That's all I have in here. So I really just kind of wanted to note the like main things that I was doing, the games I was playing, the books I was reading, and then, you know, my Hades and Persephone, which is my sort of everyday daily card pull thing. I have my fellowship stuff that has its own journal, so I never put that in here. And then just a list of other decks that I've been working with. And this was just an interesting way to kind of keep a record more of the practices and just kind of note the decks in more of, I guess, a sort of artistic way. Because like these are also like fun art pieces that I do, right? That's a thing as well. So that is just my kind of general journal for whatever I decide I want to do. Then real quick, I will just share my gaming journals. This is primarily Baldur's Gate 3 right now, or it's exclusively Baldur's Gate 3 right now because that's the main game that I'm playing. I do have some other games that I'm going to be playing soon that I'll be doing some stuff with on my channel, but I do have a full video on this, so I'm just going to do a real quick flip through. It is just in a stology, and I've just done like some stamping and, you know, some doodles and things like that. I've got some vellum tip-ins in here that just have the game logo. These are stickers from the Creeping Moon shop, some stamping. So these are my co-op games, the characters that I have played. These are the games that I live stream with Lisa. The first 2 that are finished, the 2 that we're currently running. And as we go in here, because we started realizing that like that's a lot to keep track of with a lot of games, plus I have my solo games. So anyway, this is our first run. So I have, you know, just some fun things in here about things we did. There's some stuff in here about our second campaign. And then I've been keeping notes of our current campaigns in here so that we know what we've got going on and where we're at and what we did and things like that. And then in the back here, I also have my solo games, which a lot of them I turned into like video things, like the Persephone and Astarion one. Like I legit made a movie out of it. It was fun. It was a lot of editing work, but it was fun. So I had like, you know, I did a few like episodes and things like that, and then I just put them all together into a movie, and because this is a thing that I role played and it was fun. And then I've got, I got to get my next one in here. So that's just a really quick flip through of my gaming journal that I've been keeping track of, things that I'm doing in games to just kind of help me know where I'm at and what's going on. So there you go. That is a look at most of the things that I got up to in August. Talked about some of the stuff that I had going on in my personal life, the decks that I worked with, some of the practices that I engaged with, and all that kind of good stuff. As always, you'll find links for everything I've shown here in the description box of this video. I hope that you had a wonderful August, and I wish you many blessings moving into September.